All right. Hey guys, this is Jake Borucki here for the start of our brand new mini-series podcast talking about all of our fan-made Survivor seasons, Survivor Club. We're going to go from Season 2, go all the way to Season 7, obviously skipping Season 1 because there's not really that much to talk about. But here I am I wanted to pick two people to do this with who I felt would be great to talk to, have a really good series of discussions, and I couldn't think of anyone better than both of these three-time players of the game. I'm counting the Discord season. We got Nate Borucki and we got Kearney Shine. I really couldn't think of anyone better than you guys to do this series with me. So
that's disappointing.
Well, thank you for having me, Jake.
Yeah, for sure. All right.
I feel honored.
So I guess we can kind of skip the background stuff, but I'll just say that, I pretty much got you guys into Survivor, like I have for every one of my friends, basically, and family, and I think other podcasts do a great job on covering the actual show, so I just think doing fan-made stuff like ours is going to be more, I guess, something new that other people haven't done before, so. But, alright, so we'll get into Season 2, Brains vs. Brawn. The winner of that season was, of course, Damera Gabisa. Honestly, I think just off the top, definitely one of my favorite winners that we ever had, and, even though he's the guy that voted me out 2 seasons later, but, so basically what we're going to do is we're going to talk through each season. Today we're just going to do Brains vs. Brawn and then Second Chance because that season's kind of short. And then once we get through those, then we'll do rankings of the winner, the runner-up, and whatever rankings we feel like after the fact. So we'll get this started. So Brains vs. Brawn, I remember after Season 1, Kearney and I wanted to, make the second season bigger and better. And so I remember certain things we wanted to try but didn't come to fruition. We were trying to get, Connor Rowley and Drew to come back from Season 1. I remember that. If you remember that, Kearney?
Yeah. I mean, they were, the only two people that actually stuck with it from that first season, so...
Yeah, and Samir.
Yeah. I think the big thing that we were hoping to accomplish was to actually just get a base of people from the beginning that wanted to stick with it through the end. And, Connor and Drew were, the only people that did that from the first season. But I think we did a lot better this time around with finding people who actually kind of gave a shit.
Kind of.
As much as we gave a shit, which was still
Right.
Yeah.
So, yeah, and Nate will chip in with Season 2 as much as he can from what he watched. And, I mean, I guess you guys are going to have more... I mean, Kearney's going to have enough to say because he was in production with me in Season 2. But you both are going to have stuff to say about your games in Season 3. So, I guess we will start with... I guess we can just talk about what the original tribes' setups were. So we have the Brawn tribe. We, of course, have Damera, who's going to win the season. I mean, that was kind of a... I mean, Damera's an athlete, for one, but he's the youngest person there, which is pretty interesting, because first season we had Drew, who was also a middle schooler, and Damera's a middle schooler at that time, which is crazy, that we used to have middle schoolers.
There was a bunch of their friends that were also middle schoolers, or I guess they weren't Drew's friends. But I don't know how many of them really stuck around after the one time we had them in, I think.
Right. Yeah, we only had them for 1 week. And I barely count them as players, so it's kind of because I only count the 5 of us that stuck through it in Season 1. And so it's kind of for Season 2, I'm also kind of getting rid of some of the quitters. There are some quitters that actually came back as jury members, like Ben and Caleb, as we'll get to. Alright, so yeah, we had Damera, we had Caleb, who, Season 2, his heart wasn't really in it until the season he came back and won. Kearney and I can both attest to that, that Caleb didn't have his best performance his first time till he came back and actually gave a shit.
Yeah.
So,
That's fair.
So yeah. Then we have, of course, we have Connor Launendijk, who actually the first week, Connor was placed on the opposite tribe because I think some of the brains didn't show up, so we had to switch him for 1 week. And as we'll get into, Connor was actually the first boot of the season, but we put him back in so we didn't, like, screw him over. But
didn't we put him back in because someone else dipped, and we were like,
yeah,
and he was one of the only people that stuck around. So even though he was first boot, we figured he might as well be the one to like have a shot and fill in the place of whoever it was that left. I don't remember how that part shook out, but
right, yeah. So we put Connor back on the Braun, but that's where he was going to be, because he was a swimmer at that time on the swimming team and that kind of thing. And of course, Connor's going to help bring one of our most iconic moments to life. We couldn't have it without him being the one to get yelled at.
Listen here.
We're going to make those jokes all throughout the podcast. So, rest of the Braun tribe. So we've talked about Caleb, Damera, and Connor. We also have Grant for the first time, who's going to come back for second chance. And Grant kind of just gets really blindsided by Damera in this season. He's going to give an idol to Damera, and then Damera's going to flip on him, and we'll talk about that. And Grant was someone like I was happy to give a second shot to. I guess we'll talk about it because we'll be talking about both of his seasons, but I don't know exactly how great of a player Grant really is. So
he was very go with the flow, I feel like.
Yeah. Nate,
not gonna hit on
would
that.
you agree with that as well with Grant?
I would definitely agree. He was go with the flow. However the cards landed, that's where he was. He was good with it.
Yeah.
He didn't really care. Either or.
Yeah. So after the last person on that tribe, technically, so we actually had two other people. We had Hugh, who ended up quitting and didn't really do much, so I don't really count him as a player, but he was Caleb's friend. But the last person on that tribe who actually technically ends up being first boot now, since Connor came back in, is Alec. And Alec was not that great of a Survivor player, let's just put it that way.
No.
And we'll get into
we
that.
did the one podcast in your basement, and I just kept bringing up the fact that I had another class with him in which he would sit next to this other kid whose name was Will, and Will would constantly just fucking dunk on him and call him out for saying stupid shit, and his whole response would be like, "Hey, you're so funny."
Jeez.
Yeah.
Oh man. Yeah, no, yeah, we'll get to Alex shortly, but there's some funny things that kind of show that he's really not a good Survivor player, very quickly. Alright, and then we have the Brains tribe. We, of course, have the queen herself, Leigh, queen of listen here. Leigh is an amazing character. She's entertaining, just without being intentionally entertaining, but I think she brings a lot, and you don't necessarily need all great players, you just need people to be good characters or entertaining as well as good players. You need a mix.
I would add to her credit, I think she was probably one of maybe the most passionate person about actually winning the game than everybody else I observed who was playing.
Yeah.
She really, really wanted it, and I feel like not everyone, most of the people there, we can't say that for.
Yeah, I agree, and I'm glad Leigh was a part of it. I believe, she's the only person with a disability that has played, which is pretty cool just to have, and to see at least that she was able to make it as far as she did the first time. So, then of course we have, you could call him the first ever villain we ever had, Tyler, guy who constantly found idols. I believe he found 2 or 3 in season 2 alone. And he's really going to be, we'll get to why Tyler lost, I think. And I think it was really towards the end of the game that he lost it for himself, or at the very end of the game. And, you know, we'll talk about that. But Tyler's a huge part of the season, and it's kind of sad with second chances. We'll also get to that he was the first boot. But, yeah.
Could have been me.
Yeah.
Could have been me.
Yeah, I know. I mean, we'll get to that, but you definitely pushed the target off of yourself onto Tyler, so that was pretty good. I will admit that. And then...
Yeah, we could do a whole podcast about how Nate was playing in Second Chance.
Yeah.
He was straight scheming.
We'll talk about it.
Always stay scheming.
We'll talk about it. All right, and then we, of course, have the Lumberjack. We have Silas on the Brains Tribe, and Silas played on the Discord All-Stars with you guys, and in the original season, he was... I called him the Rupert of our series just because the beard and, like, the plaid instead of the tie-dye, but it made sense to call him the Rupert. And I don't necessarily know that Silas is that great of a Survivor player either, but I think he did bring a lot, at least to Season 2, to at least call him an all-star, for sure.
Definitely.
So, yeah, and then we have Ben Cook, Tyler's one of Tyler's couple puppets that he had, Tyler's main puppet, really, and there's some outside the game stories about Ben that we can probably share. Kearney, I'm sure you have something you can share about Ben.
Hey, man, I don't... If this is going on the internet, I don't think I need to
let her rip.
On this guy too hard.
Let it rip.
I mean, fatherhood is such a beautiful thing. You know? That's all I'm going to say about that.
So lost.
We'll leave it at that.
Like, there's like a recurring theme with all of our games where you'd have someone we kind of roped in, and they seemed a little bit interested, and then they'd rope in one of their friends, which is where you get your Ben Cooks, and then that person, because they don't know anyone else, is obviously just going to play with their friend that they were brought in by until they, you know, ultimately leave for whatever reason.
Yeah.
What's it called? Parental support checks. Those are a good reason that you might have to divert your attention away from Survivor. Yeah.
Yeah, we'll say that. Yeah, so Ben ends
up... war protection.
Ben ends up leaving the game for whatever reason, but then comes back as a jury member for the finale. And then our final person on the Brains Tribe is someone who I think who could have been a really good challenge performer later in the game, is Robert.
Robert.
It kind of sucks. I mean, I guess Robert he didn't have as much passion for the game itself. I think he's one of those people that actually outright said it, that he hated it. But he got idled out by Tyler. He was Tyler's first victim of Tyler ended up, we'll get to it, but Tyler took Robert out of the game, and I think Robert could have been a really big challenge beast. Rivaling Caleb. All right, and then so now that we've covered everybody, I believe now we'll just move into covering the season. All right, so we start off. I guess before we start, we should also say that a certain person who appears in Season 3, Mitch Rice, was supposed to be on Season 2. As a member of the Brains Tribe, Kearney and I did pregame interviews with as many of the cast that wanted to show up for them, if we remember that correctly. And Mitch was one of the people who did a pregame interview with us. And the week before, we were supposed to start. And then the day of, he let me know. He's like, bro, I'm so nervous. The police are looking for me because I lit off a Molotov firework on someone's lawn. And so I can't come to Survivor today. If I remember, that was what happened. And so that's why Mitch didn't show up. But also another reason is because there were rumors going around, because Mitch is an acquired taste, and people thought it'd be funny if he got voted out first. And the people on his tribe because Kearney and I let them know the tribes beforehand, and like a week before, or maybe even longer than that. And Silas and Tyler, since they were both on the Brains tribe, they were outwardly saying that they were going to vote Mitch off first. So I think Mitch got scared that he was going to be the first one out because he
I don't know
was.
why he would think that.
Because Silas and Tyler were just outwardly saying it constantly. So it was funny. But I think, I don't know, there's so much. We'll get to Mitch when we get to season 3 because we actually get. Mitch is just weird, and we'll get to the fact that he's really not a good Survivor player either, because I just don't think he's good at the social part of the game at all. And that's an important part of the game. Alright, so anyways, so Mitch doesn't show up. Robert actually didn't show up for the first week either, so that's why we had to sub Connor in Robert's place on the Brains tribe. Because the rest of the Brawn tribe showed up, including Caleb's friend Hugh, who never said a word and quit after 2 weeks. So, yeah. So we ended up switching Connor, and Connor's constantly saying, I don't want to be on this team, I want to be on the other team, which is probably not the smartest thing you want to say to people in a game where you vote people off, is, you know, you don't want to appear to not be a team player. So, I guess, what's your guys' thoughts on that?
I'll let the current man go first.
Ah, you're too kind. I mean, I don't know. I feel like the best players are the people that are trying to seem like they're all with the team, but they're doing their scheming on the side. Like,
right.
You can't sound like you're just playing for yourself all the time, but if you're not playing with yourself, you're going to get dicked in the end, more likely than not, you know?
Mm-hmm.
I feel like that's, yeah, but I feel like everyone kind of gets that concept who's actually watched the show.
Right.
I mean, Tony, if you look at, like, that season of Survivor, he was the schemiest, but he was also, like, working with a crew the whole time, you know?
Right.
It was all facade.
Yeah. Well, Connor, Nate, did you have anything else on that, or we just can keep going?
I think Kearney hit the nail on the head right there.
Boom.
Yeah. All right. Well, yeah. So Connor didn't want to seem like he was a part of that team, because he would rather be with the athletes. But so we get to the first challenge, and it was a challenge I reserved the gym for it. I remember the basketball court, because it was a big open space, and so the challenge was that my mom helped me put these puzzle pieces, these giant puzzle pieces, in these bags, and so each person had to take turns running to get a bag and then bring them back and then untie the knots and then one person had to solve the puzzle. And so I believe each bag was like, one was really close and then one was really far away, so obviously people sent their fastest to the farthest ones and then people sent their slowest to the closest ones. So I liked this first challenge. I generally try to do stuff with a little bit of physical ability and then generally a puzzle to kind of equal things out, because puzzles, I definitely like the finishing part of the challenges. So I guess how do you guys like this type of challenge?
I think this is one of our better ones. I mean, everything
it's simplistic, but it's amazing.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. You know, in the show, they're always building these elaborate fucking puzzles out of like wood blocks and shit, and we don't really have the time for that. So buying a $5 giant puzzle is like, way better. A really good way to replicate that kind of thing. And it's like, yeah, puzzles are challenging, you know, by the nature of it.
Yeah. So the Brains tribe surprisingly loses the puzzle, which is interesting. You wouldn't think the Brains would lose something that they're supposed to be good at, but
yeah, I mean, we weren't exactly handpicking the valedictorians of our school. You know?
Yeah, that's true.
I don't feel like that's much of an insult to the people who were on that tribe, but
yeah. Well, and
also,
I mean,
if I'm correct, when we went to the gym, you had reserved it, but there were still it was still full of people, wasn't it?
Yeah, we had to go to like the other side of the gym and like try to do it like
We were in the fucking corner.
Yeah. Which, I mean, luckily we still got it to work, so that was pretty good. But, yeah, so the Brains tribe loses. They have to go to Tribal. I believe Connor is on the chopping block because he doesn't want to be on the team. And then Connor's trying to get Leigh off first. And I had the footage before, but I lost it somehow, unfortunately. So that's not up on YouTube. But, so then we go to our first Tribal. I believe Tyler and Ben are convincing Connor that Leigh is going. And then Silas wants to piss off his sister. By the way, just in case people don't know that are watching this, Silas and Leigh are brother and sister. So, I don't know if Silas wants me saying that or not if he watches this, but, yeah, so Silas wants to cause chaos, I believe, so he votes for Leigh. Connor votes for Leigh, but Tyler and Ben pull the old blindside, and they blindside Connor in a 3-2 vote. So, yeah, so Connor's pretty shocked, and luckily for him, we bring him back in kind of just because we had to sub him in for somebody else, if I remember that, Kearney.
Yeah. I mean, wasn't it? It might have been Ben that had just kind of dipped out, and we subbed Connor for. Does that seem right to you?
I think it was Hugh, actually, Caleb's friend.
Oh, yeah, I guess so.
Because Ben didn't quit till, like, the merge, I think. Like, right, or maybe it was, like, it might have been, like, right after the Robert vote, I think, where Tyler Idle saved Ben, and then Ben just dipped.
Okay. I gotcha.
So Connor comes back in, so I guess we'll move on to, since Connor's back in, we'll just move on to episode 2, and this is where we get to see the first instance of kind of Damera's game, I think. And so we have the second challenge. It's dodgeball, except my mom and I could only find, like, these big rubber balls, or not normal dodgeballs, but, like, they were huge.
Kickballs. Yeah,
kickballs. And that probably didn't work as well. And so we ended up going to the track. And I do remember this was a controversy for someone like Caleb. I remember he had this big deal of he didn't want to go out on the track because he didn't really think we should be using the track team's, like, field or whatever. If I remember, that was what was happening there. If I remember that.
I don't recall that controversy. I just remember, like, going to the asphalt that was in, like, the middle of the track, not actually part of the track teams. Or, I don't know. Was this during the spring?
Yeah, this was during the spring, but, like,
oh, wow.
I remember it ended up, like, working out, though. I mean, like, we weren't in anybody's way, so I don't know. It was...
Yeah.
So I remember Caleb ended up sitting out, and so, like, and Robert ended up coming for this challenge, so, like, the Brains tribe had more people, I think, if I remember that, and then, so the Brains tribe ended up winning. Robert was actually really good in this challenge, if I remember, and really was, like, their star player. So, I mean, that makes me even more sad, like, that Robert, I guess, never got another shot, because I think he could have been a really fun player to have another shot.
Yeah, I agree.
But, so yeah, the Braun tribe loses the Sporty challenge, so go figure on that one, too. But, yeah, so they lose, and here's where we really get Damera's game. So Alec, if I remember, tried to come up to Damera and Connor and was like, hey, would you guys help me vote off Caleb? And I do remember that I think this is one of the challenges, Alec said, I remember Alec asked me this really stupid question out loud. He's like, what if we lose and all of us have alliances with each other? And I was like, well, someone's not going to have an alliance with everybody.
Figure it out, dude.
Yeah. So that's just really funny to me. So that's showing how bad of a player Alec really is. But
I just think he didn't really understand what it was he was signing up for.
Yeah, I can
You know?
agree with
Yeah,
that.
if you hadn't seen the show, none of what we were doing would make a lot of sense, probably.
Yeah.
And obviously, he hadn't seen it.
Yeah. So Damera and Connor make Alec think that they're voting out. Caleb. I remember. And they also think they have Grant. I think Alec thought he had everybody voting out Caleb. And I also remember there was stuff with the idols, so we'll get to that. But I guess we should cover this vote. So we get to the vote, and it's a unanimous vote against Alec. And I think in the background of the video, that tribal council, you can see Damera just like smirking in the background because he knows what's gonna happen, but he's like trying to hide it, and it's actually really, really funny. That's what I love about Damera.
Yeah.
Was
at the time we had the video of him like pulling us aside, he was like laughing his ass off and explaining what had happened. Yeah, that's one of my favorite moments of that whole season.
I have that on video, and I used that for the trailer as well. I used that video a lot. Like that just shows, I think, how great Damera is. All right. So yeah, we get. So we're at. We just got through the Alec boot. That's. So I was saying that. I'll edit this out. Nate and I played with Damera, and so we kind of know. I think Damera's just really good at like. I think he's really good at lying to people, but making you feel that you can trust him 100% because he's like super likable. He has that personality, and just like that's just how powerful Damera's social game is, and that's why I think
I would say top 2 social games in all of Survivor.
Yeah, and I don't.
Bold words, but I can't say I can fault you for that.
Yeah, and
like
number
2. Top 2. Who do you think tops him in social game?
I don't think
he's liked, like I said, he's liked by everyone.
Yeah, I don't know. I don't know if I could put anyone above him.
I don't think so either. I mean, I'm trying to think of anybody from the Adrian seasons who has a better social game than Damera does. And
yeah, I can't speak on that.
Yeah, I that's why I'm trying to think. I mean, Damera he's one of the only people. He's the only winner, I believe, that never got a vote cast against him. And then when he came back again, I don't think he got a vote cast against him when Nate and I were playing with him either. So, like, that's
wild. And given that he was the winner.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And he came in second the second time and, like, almost won again based off likability. So, like, that's just how good Damera is. And we'll continue going.
Yeah, I got it.
He's the GOAT.
Yeah. And so we get past the Alec boot. And I guess we can talk about these idol stuff. So we hid 2 idols. We hid one the first week, one the second week. And Kearney can talk more about the second one because I hid the first one. I hid the first one, like, underneath the fountain. Like, there was a hole underneath the drinking fountain that was not being used. And I hid the first one there. And Tyler found that one, I remember.
Yeah.
And you were filming Kearney. But he found that one, I think, around when Connor got voted out the first time. And then the second week, the Alec vote out, I remember Grant and Damera went in. Kearney, it was your idea to hide the second idol in the auditorium, I remember.
Yeah, those the chairs had like a space you could pull back between like the cushion of the backing. And I was like, this would be great if you wanted to hide like weed or other shit. And then as it turned out, we were like, where are we going to hide this idol? And so we did that. And I think the clue was something about like we had the like letter number of the seat.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, but I feel like I don't know. I feel like we really like singled Tyler out and like kind of pushed him towards finding that idol specifically.
Yeah, I can agree.
We were in the theater with him walking around, like, I don't know, dude, where do you think it is?
No, it was the theater one was Damera and Grant, but yeah, we kind of pushed them to find that one because
that was Damera who found that.
Yeah, Grant found it and then gave it to Damera because that's kind of the storyline of what happens with Grant and with Damera flipping on him.
Fuck, I totally thought Tyler had those 2 idols.
Tyler found one found a different one later after he got rid of Robert.
Damn, that's embarrassing.
Yeah. So it's good. I can remember so yeah, Tyler found the one under the fountain, and you filmed him with that one. The theater one, Grant and Damera had. Grant got the clue, I think, from the other tribe, because we had the other tribe giving the winner or the losers clues, and they gave it to Grant, I think, and then Grant shared it with Damera for whatever reason, and then he gave the idol to Damera because he trusted
That speaks
Damera.
more to Damera's social game. He was like, yeah, dude, you want me to have this idol.
And Damera, I remember Damera and I used to hang out because he was like, we were really good friends back at that point, and Damera and I would hang out, and I have no idea why Grant gave me his idol. I have no idea. I'm just like, you're just that good right now. And so, yeah, so we'll get to that shortly. I believe the third week, we had both tribes had to go to tribal council and vote somebody out, was the twist. And we had a game of Ninja, and one person from each tribe was going to win individual immunity from their tribe's vote. And I remember the Brains tribe won. Ben didn't show up, and I think Silas was late. So it just ended up being Tyler versus Leigh versus Robert.
Yep. Oh, boy.
And I remember Robert was really good in the challenge, and then he, fell down at, the last second, and Tyler won, I remember. If you remember that. Yeah, and because Robert was rolling around and doing a bunch of I didn't even know that was legal, and then I think we met the rules of Ninja.
Yeah, he would fucking. I'm sorry. He would totally in one motion. He would take a step back, roll, and get back up, and I was like, shit. This dude's fucking advanced as shit.
Yeah, yeah. So there's a rule in Ninja, I think, where if you fall down out of a stance, then you're out. So Robert lost that way. But then Robert and Silas make the plan to get rid of Ben, and apparently Leigh gets on Silas's side, which is really, really weird because I thought she was with Tyler the whole game. But if you look at it, Tyler successfully plays his idol on Ben, and Leigh didn't vote with them, which is really, really strange. So Ben was going home, Tyler plays his idol, and he idols Robert out of the game. So Robert, the tribe has spoken, which, again, like we've said, Robert should have, I didn't really have his contact information to put him on second chance, and I'm not sure if he would have wanted to play again, but I think he would have been really fun to have on that season, so. But, yeah.
Who?
Hello, Jake, you there?
Yeah, you.
Are you there, Nate?
I am there.
Okay, we'll edit that part out too.
Here.
Okay, so then we get to, we have then the Braun Tribe Tribal Council. I believe at this point, Hugh was on his way out. He was going to quit. And I think Caleb was basically at that point too, but they still got to vote. And then I believe Damera won the Ninja immunity for the Braun Tribe. So it's Connor, Damera, and Grant. And then Caleb and Hugh sent me his and Hugh's votes for Grant because they got nervous that Grant was playing both sides or something, if I remember. And then Caleb told Damera to help them vote out Grant, but Connor and Grant thought Damera was voting with them against Caleb. And then, surprise, Damera flips, and it's a 3-2 vote, and Grant gets blindsided. And I think the funniest part of that video is Connor's reaction, just being no, and he's just, screaming because Grant got blindsided. Because funny story, Grant wasn't actually there the day he got blindsided.
Yeah.
And
shitty, but whatever.
Yeah, I mean it is. Luckily he got second chance, so that was a good thing. But I remember because we messaged Grant, and he's and we had to tell him he was voted out, and he's I'm sorry, I was on a trip or whatever, and we're we're sorry, it's just we had to keep the game going, and he didn't even remember. I remember he doesn't even remember giving the idol to Damera, which is crazy.
I wonder if Damera dosed him with something.
Yeah.
Games with a psilocybin.
Yeah.
That silly Simon.
But, yeah, so Grant gets voted out, does come back as a jury member, obviously. I guess I should mention Alec and Robert did not return as jury members, which is weird, but they didn't. But kind of the thing in our series has always been if you're voted out, you're always going to be a member of the jury. It's just so that nobody felt like they were being excluded completely. That was kind of our rule, so that we could, like, keep our club there and kind of just carry it into all my other seasons. Because generally, if you're voted out pre-merge, you don't make jury, but...
Yeah.
But, yeah, so then, technically, we were going to merge at 8, and then ended up being this giant quit of, like, 3 people. So, like, Ben drops out, Caleb ends up dropping out, Hugh, I don't really care, he ends up dropping out. But Ben and Caleb still came back as jury members, but they just kind of dropped. And so we're down to our final 5. So now this is where the last 2 weeks, last 2 episodes, we're getting to that moment of Leigh saying, listen here. And I think these last 2 weeks, if we're going to rank Brains vs. Brawn as a season, I think the reason why is because Brains vs. Brawn, this endgame right here, is probably one of the best endgames we've ever had. Or I've ever had. So,
Yeah, it was kind of like we weeded out a lot of the people that didn't really want to be there, and everyone who was down at the end was kind of like, all right.
Yeah.
When you make it that far in, even though it's like just this kind of goofy after-school thing, everybody really fucking wanted to win at that point.
Right. And so, yeah, I like this final 5. I think, I don't know if we wanted to say what, I guess, towards the finale, like what our towards finale, or like finale kind of groupings are, like what is the best. I think Brains vs. Brawn, Silas, Leigh, Connor, Tyler, Damera. I think that's a really good final 5. I think that's probably, again, like that's the people who really care about being there. And I think that compared to a lot of the other ones, I think it's towards the top for sure.
For sure.
So we'll get to the final 5 now, which we have a memory challenge. I remember this one. If you watch the video, I believe Kearney focused the camera completely on Silas, which is really, really funny. If you check that out, just because it should, I mean, technically we should have it on everybody, and it's just on Silas the entire time, which is, I mean, it's funny, but...
It might have been unintentional comedy.
Yeah, I find it good. But yeah, so we have a memory challenge. You have to memorize color patterns, and this actually ends up being the challenge. The only immunity in the history. Leigh ends up winning immunity, which is crazy that she actually ended up winning an individual immunity, because I don't think too many people necessarily expected her to win something, but she was very excited, obviously, after winning that immunity, and I do think that's really, really cool for her that she at least got to experience that.
Yeah, definitely.
100%.
It's one more than I ever won.
Yeah.
I don't know, did I ever win a challenge? I don't even remember, to be honest with you.
You won one in each of your seasons, I think, Nate. I think you won one in Second Chance, and then I think it was the water bottle one, and then I think you won the Lightning game in season 4.
Heck yeah, man.
So,
Thanks for the refresher.
Yeah.
Now I forgot how awesome I am. Thank you so much.
I mean,
You can do a whole podcast on how awesome Nate Borucki is.
We might have to do that. And then we'll have to do a Kearney one.
Yeah. Well, we'll
We
talk.
don't need to do that.
We'll talk season 3 at some point. But we're finishing up season 2. All right. So then, after Leigh wins immunity, actually for this final 5. So Tyler is an idol. Tyler finds another idol after idling out Robert. And then Damera has Grant's idol that he gave him. So they both have idols. It's the last time they can play one. So at this point, and Leigh has immunity. So really, Connor and Silas are really the ones on the chopping block. But for that, like, there was a bunch of strategy talk going on of what people wanted to do. And for that to happen, that was just crazy. So we end up going to tribal council. And I believe Tyler plays his idol, Damera plays his, and so they're both safe. And then it is Damera, Connor, and Tyler. They vote out Silas as like the biggest threat. And, at this point, I think we need to also have another pro for Damera's social game is he just betrayed Connor. Connor was so pissed that Grant was out. And yet Damera's social game allows him to get back in with Connor and have them working together, which I think is crazy.
Yeah.
Like, that's a huge pro for Damera's
crazy.
game. So, I mean,
What
I
is
think...
that?
The game's crazy, so it makes sense.
Yeah. and it's a good thing for both their games to work together, so it makes sense, like, they're both doing what's best for them is to work together and not go for each other. And I mean, I don't know if Caleb had stayed in, if Damera would have just ditched Connor and went with Caleb. They might have done that. But, like, the fact Damera's able to adapt, like, immediately, even after Caleb leaves, and immediately, like, get in this alliance with Connor, and, like, that just speaks volumes, again, to how good of a player Damera is, so.
I mean, I don't want to bring it up during this crazy time, but, I mean, it also worked in his favor that he kept playing the race card. You gonna vote for me because I'm black? You gonna vote for me because I'm black?
Oh,
and everyone's like, nope, can't do that. Don't want to be that guy.
How much did he bring that up? Because I remember
it came up a lot.
Every turn. Every season he played, he'd bring it up.
Oh my
God.
It's little, like,
what does it tell you?
Get out of prison free card. Every
Do
time.
what works.
To be fair, I never...
Adapt to your surroundings.
To be fair, the second time I never voted for him not because he was black. I wanted to trust him is the reason.
Survivor Club.
Oh my God, no!
Oh, man.
No! No! Oh God, no!
We've been canceled.
Okay, I probably should edit that out, but
Absolutely not.
as long as people take it as a joke and we're not actually trying to be racist here.
People need to know we're authentic.
Yeah, authentically
racist, unfortunately.
Oh God, no. So yeah,
Don't worry,
go.
Ricky, nobody ever takes things in the internet out of context.
Oh yeah, I'm sure. That's like Spider-Man Far From Home when Peter Parker's like, the news never lies.
God. With a French model. Where'd you meet? The internet.
All right, so we get to so Connor, Tyler, and Damera vote Silas out as their only other option. Leigh actually votes for Connor, and Silas votes for Tyler, but vote is negated by Tyler's idol play anyway. So Silas goes out like a man. If you watch that video, that's another iconic moment. Is Silas takes the torch, fake torches because we had props. We couldn't actually light torches at that time. But he slams the torch down, is like, I go out like a man, and you get the iconic Kearney quote of, what a effing badass, from the camera.
Well, I guess it's a good thing you didn't have real torches, because you could be assumed for someone else.
Oh, yeah. Hey, this predated certain protests against a race of people that may have occurred in the southern part of this country. So,
Carlson?
Yeah, that one.
All right, so so Silas goes out like a man, like an effing badass, and joins the jury. And funny thing is, so then you see in the video, I think Leigh's trying to explain to Connor why she voted for him. And she's like, I didn't want Silas to know. And you can hear Silas in the background being like, Leigh, you have the worst poker face. So, kudos to Leigh for trying, but, like, it was way too obvious, unfortunately.
Yeah.
But, I don't know. So, yeah, we get to the Final Four. We get to the iconic moment itself coming up. We get to talk about it officially. Connor, you listen here. So we'll kind of go over everything. So we have this disgusting food challenge, I believe, for, we had it in the first season, but it really didn't. Again, first season is kind of not good. So, second season, I believe we had the German sausage, I believe it's called Braunschweiger. We had that as one of the food items, we had sardines, I know, for the last one, and I think we had, I can't remember what the other one was we had, but that we had about like 3 items, and last person to show an empty mouth was going to be out of that round. And so I remember Leigh goes out first to the challenge because she doesn't even attempt to eat the Braunschweiger because it's like that has a really bad aftertaste from what I've heard from a lot of you guys from seasons 2 and 3 after eating that you guys think it's like the worst thing ever. So
it's an acquired taste from what I hear.
Yeah.
Yeah, Mitch said it wasn't that bad. It just had a weird, funky taste.
Yeah. Yeah. So Leigh gives up, which ironically next season when we talk about season 3, Leigh does try the Braunschweiger, but then throws it up.
Yeah.
Yeah, that was rough.
Yeah, but she
at least throw up, or was she just gagging?
No, she threw it back up, I remember. And and we'll get to this when we get to season 3 also, but I remember Damera in the background, since Damera was helping me host that season, Damera's like, eat it again. He kept telling Leigh to eat it again after he peeped it back up. I'm like, Damera, why?
Slurp, slurp.
But yeah, so then, so Leigh gives it up. She doesn't even eat in this one. So then, I can't remember what the second food item was, but I know the last one was sardines. I remember Connor beats out Tyler at, like, the last second for that round. And so it's between Connor and Damera for the sardines. And I think Damera wins that one. Might be wrong about that, but I think Damera wins that immunity. And then, so yeah, Damera gets immunity. We're down to Final 4 here. And so Connor and Damera are trying to get Leigh to flip on Tyler, who she's been working with the whole game, and basically Tyler's been kind of the puppet master for her. And so it's Leigh's choice. Leigh gets to choose what she chooses here. And she can either force a tie with Tyler, stick with Tyler, stick to what she wants to do, or flip and make a huge move and betray the guy who's been kind of manipulating her the entire game. And so, and kind of the rule was, so the rule is between rocks. So if it's a tie between 2 people, or more people, but 2 people in this instance, the 2 people who are tied get immunity in the revote if no one switches their vote, and the people or person who doesn't get tied they're the people who draw rocks. And so Leigh doesn't switch her vote. Leigh's the only one who she's the only one available to get votes at that point because she doesn't switch her vote because Tyler and Connor got tied and Damera has immunity. So Leigh goes out by default. She didn't see it coming. You can see that she just I remember Damera saying to me, she just got clapped. And so Leigh might be the best blindside of the season just because she had no idea she was eliminating herself. And I guess from a reduction standpoint, I think the reason Kearney and I, we didn't tell her to switch her vote because we didn't want to, screw over Tyler by telling her if she doesn't switch her vote, she's out. But,
I feel like it's also because it's not our responsibility to decide everyone plays. It's like,
right.
I certainly didn't want to tell her shit. It's like, if she's about to, make a costly mistake, it would be way better for the game if an authentic mistake happened than if we try to manipulate it.
Right, exactly.
Not that we never manipulated anything, but
Yeah. Well, this is one instance
somewhere.
Exactly.
This is one instance where I think we did a good job at standing back and letting it happen because Damera and Connor are the ones that are trying to convince Leigh to flip, and she just won't listen. She won't take her own advice and listen.
Yeah.
And so Leigh gets eliminated. Connor, being the salty a-hole that he is, decides to rub it in Leigh's face. And, of course, we get the iconic, Connor, listen here, I choose what I choose. And if it's you and Tyler in the final 2, and then she gets cut off by Silas yelling at her.
Wait!
It's just such a great moment. And, like, that's something that everybody will remember. And I know, like, Leigh's not the greatest Survivor player, but she's just so iconic in our series. If we ever somehow had this big all-star season where we got everybody, which probably would never happen, but you'd have to have Leigh back just because.
Never say never.
Well, I mean, it just, like, Leigh is so iconic that you can't not have her back because everybody remembers her. Everybody knows this moment that has, like, watched my clips and whatnot, and heard me talk about it. All right, so Leigh says the moment, and sorry, I lost my train of thought. I'll edit this out. Where was I at? Just real quick.
Leigh gets voted out. It has her little moment, and then we're moving onward to the next. I think we were going on to the next thing after that. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. So.
Next challenge.
So yeah, after Leigh's moment, and I guess we can talk about Damera in the background is like, white people don't listen to black people if you listen.
White people never listen. I mean, yeah. I guess that was the time when that happened.
Yeah. So more of the story, if people are trying to get you to make a big move, do it.
Especially if they're black.
Yeah. Yeah, so then we move on to the final challenge, which is a challenge that I wish we would have kept going, but we couldn't really do it after this season because location changes. But the holding yourself up between two lab tables, and because we were in the biology room, and Connor, Tyler, and Damera in this challenge. And I like this challenge a lot. Me and Connor Rowley did it in season 1 for that challenge. And so I actually won this challenge, but I mean, I don't really count season 1, so I don't really count much for that. But yeah, so I believe Tyler ends up winning this challenge, and really, because Connor and Damera are going to vote him out next, probably, because they kind of want to be the ones to take down, like, the Puppet Master and Tyler, because they know he's kind of been running the game so far. And so, yeah, so Tyler wins this, probably saves himself, and then, yeah, so Tyler has the tough decision to vote Damera or Connor out. I know, watching the videos, I believe the jury, I know Silas said it in one of the videos in the finale where he's like, he wanted Connor to win, I guess. I mean, I honestly didn't. I guess we can kind of talk about this as well with Connor, but I don't necessarily know that a guy was voted out first, and I understand he's like the underdog and whatnot, but I just don't know that Connor's game was good enough to be a winning game, obviously, if that makes sense.
Yeah,
but.
Yeah, I don't think he had enough in place strategy-wise.
Mm-hmm.
I think he was getting played more than anything else was going down.
Right.
Maybe I don't know. Maybe I shouldn't say that, but I think Tyler and Damera were really running the whole game.
Right. Yeah, and we'll get to that. So Tyler, I believe, because Connor has been like vocally opposing Tyler the entire time, being like, and I think it's great for Damera to kind of hide in the shadows and just be like, let Connor dig his own grave with like taunting Tyler and Leigh and just being like, Tyler, I'm going to get you out. And, like, that was perfect for Damera. So Tyler wants to shove it in Connor's face, so he votes Connor out. And, again, in the background of that, you can hear Leigh going, my, after Connor gets voted out, and it's perfect.
Bro, I forgot how salty that whole, like, end, like, the final 5-0 was. Like,
it's so good, though.
It's good.
It's so perfect. But, yeah, so Connor gets voted out, final member of the jury. I guess, did we want to rank, like, fallen angels and kind of track that? So that's, like, the person voted out right before the end. And we can kind of, I don't know if we wanted to do that or just do runners-up and winners. How do you want to do that?
I don't know. I don't, my brain doesn't work the best with numbers like that. Like, I don't know where I put someone like a 1 to 6, but I could just come up with something on the spot, I guess. I don't know.
Yeah, well, we can just do winners.
We could just talk about it. We could rank it, whatever you want to do, man.
Okay, we can just do winners and runners up because I feel like that's maybe the more interesting part, and just
Sure.
we've talked enough through everything else, I think, with everybody. And so now we have the final two, and I think, you know, Damera and Tyler, we said it in, like, at that finale, when it got to them, it's like, these are the two best players of the season. I mean, you have Damera, who's played this A-plus social game, but he's had his finger on the pulse of everything strategically. He voted out Grant. He's gotten people to work with him, like Connor, and, you know, he obviously he made sure that Tyler wasn't going to vote him out by not pissing him off. And then you have Tyler, who's been like this strategic mastermind. He's found idols. He's made all these big moves. And he's made sure people stuck with him enough so that he can move on to the next round and won that last immunity when he needed to. But I think where Tyler went wrong, I mean, I think in this, you can see it in the video, but in the final tribal speech, I think this is where Tyler loses the game, because I think he kind of starts kind of sucking up to everybody, but kind of in a way that turns people off, I guess you could say. I guess, what's your opinion on that?
Yeah, I mean, I don't remember that clearly, but I definitely feel like his speech kind of sunk him in the end. I just remember there kind of being an air of like, I don't really like this, and everyone else, it became pretty clear while he was talking that people were leaning more towards Damera.
Right.
Damera was just being more authentic at that point, and like, yeah, I don't know. Tyler really turned everyone off with that last speech, I think.
Right, and I mean, I think Final Tribal is where you want to be honest and not, like, seeming fake, like you said. Yeah. So Damera was way more authentic and genuine, and I think that worked for him. And so Connor's just pissed at Tyler and stuff, so I think Connor's locked for Damera. I think Caleb's obviously locked for Damera. Tyler has locked votes from Ben and Leigh, so really Grant and Silas are kind of the swings here on the jury. I believe those two are leaning either way, and Tyler definitely turned them away from voting for him. So yeah. Damera wins 4-2, and both the player rankings I've done, like with you and a couple other people, done it twice. Damera's always come out on top as the best player we've ever had, and I don't think that's ever changed. And so, I mean, we can get into these ratings real quick. I'm sorry that Nate had to leave in the middle. Hopefully we'll have more time in future seasons to kind of talk about everything that we need to talk about together, and we'll have more to say. But, yeah, so Kearney, you can go first with your ratings. We'll just start with Damera. Like, we can just overall game and, like, what score you'd give Damera.
I mean, it's like you say, he played an incredible social game. Like, no one disliked him, even though he fucked over, like, so many people in that first stretch. I mean, some people kind of screwed themselves, but, you know, like you said, he was trying to save Leigh the whole time, and, you know, she let herself go. But even with that, like, he was able to come out on top. He totally crushed the jury speech. I don't know. He gets like a perfect 6, I guess. That's the highest, right?
Yep.
Yeah, I like you. As we were going over this, you started bringing up how he's never had like votes cast against him. Everybody's always really liked him. He got Grant's idol so efficiently that Grant like didn't even remember that it happened. You know, I don't know what kind of magic this dude was like pulling, but it was he was perfect. It might have just been like circumstantial too. You might have just been lucky that everyone just trusted him for whatever reason. But like, yeah, right. He totally crushed it as far as I'm concerned.
Right. I agree with your 6. I'm also going to give him a 6. I think luck plays in any Survivor winner's game. Like, you have to have a little bit of luck to get to that point and then to win. Like, a little bit. Like, it takes skill, but it also, you know, like you said, luck plays a huge factor in getting to that point and winning. And Damera, I don't think any other winner is going to get a perfect 6, just being honest, but maybe we'll be surprised by some deep dives from people if we can get those, and maybe someone
nobody else I played with, maybe in your seasons, but like,
yeah. And so, I mean, like, yeah, I definitely think, and Nate gave Damera 6 as well. So Damera averages out 6 plus 6 plus 6. It's 18 divided by 3. That's 6. So Damera gets a perfect score all across the board. And I think very deservedly so. And I guess we can rank losing finalists. So we'll do Tyler today. So Kearney, you can go with what you want for Tyler, and then I'll give Nate's ranking, and then I'll give mine. So.
Well, Tyler was definitely my pick to win at the beginning of that season.
Mm-hmm.
You know, I was impressed. He was a man of the people as well. Mm-hmm. Very down to earth for the most part. Like we said earlier, that speech was a little weird at the end, but
mm-hmm.
I don't think anyone would say that he didn't play a great game and he didn't work his magic with the people.
Mm-hmm.
You know, he orchestrated getting Connor out, at least, which he was no joke to begin with. I'm not fucking that up, am I? Like, that's how it went down, right?
Or you meaning Robert, or?
Yeah, sorry. I mean, Robert could have easily gone farther in that game, but he booked him right there.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean?
Right.
So I'll give Tyler a 5.
Yeah.
He didn't have quite that social edge, I feel like, but he was good at scheming. He was good with people. He just barely came in second, as far as I'm concerned.
Right. I can agree with that. I gave him a 5 as well. I think that's a perfect spot for Tyler. I think he's going to be very high, at least probably around there in the overall rankings. Well, I guess I'll talk about Nate's in a second, because I feel like I don't know that it necessarily is super accurate, but I mean, that's his opinion. But Tyler, yeah, I think he really only screwed up at the final tribal speech, and I think it sucks what happens to Tyler the second time, and we'll talk about that when we get to season 3, where he goes out first. But I think it starts that trend of people doing well. Okay, so yeah, I give Tyler a 5. I think, yeah, it's unfortunate what happened to him again, with him getting voted out first. It continues that trend, or starts that trend of people doing well in their first time and then getting voted out early the next time they play, because they're targeted for being a threat. And so, like, that's just the unfortunate part of having a returning player come back after being so successful. So,
yeah.
But yeah, I agree with Tyler being a 5. Nate gave him a 2, and I know Nate voted him out first in season 3. I don't know. He's like, he held a grudge. I don't even think Tyler tried to get Nate out, but maybe Nate has stories of, like, behind the scenes stuff that we necessarily didn't see in season 3. So I don't know. But we can get to that when we do season 3. But
yeah, I'm interested to hear more about that.
Yeah. So we officially 5 plus 5 is 10, plus the 2 that Nate gave is a 12. Divided by 3 is Tyler gets a 4, which I think is a little bit low for him. But I definitely don't think Tyler's going to be the worst losing finalist. I didn't think he was going to be the best. I think there's other great people who came in second or third, like in a final 3, facing the jury, that are probably better than him. But I think he's definitely top 5 at least. But
for sure.
But we'll see how Nate ranks in the future when we have more time. But yeah, I think that's all. And I guess if we want to tease, only one other thing I wanted to tease that I forgot to bring up to you, but I think I brought it up to Nate. I think at the end of going through all 6 of these seasons, I think what I wanted to do as well was do some, I think I showed this to you before, but the Brant Steele simulation of that site that lets you put in, like, people for a simulated Survivor game, where it's like you just put in their pictures and it randomly generates seasons and, like, outcomes. If you remember
really?
That. Yeah, and you just have to put in.
I remember this.
Yeah, you just have to put in pictures, like, and then you click, like, proceed, and then it'll randomly generate, like, alliances and what happens, and then we can just, like, talk about how this happened, how the simulator sees it, and, like, just have fun and joke around. And I was thinking of doing a Brant Steele Survivor Club All-Stars, since we probably would never be able to do an actual All-Stars So, for example, we can put Leigh in, we can put Damera in and see how the Brant Steel Simulator would randomly decide how Damera does this time. So I think that'd be a lot of fun to do at the end of all these and just, like, put together all of Survivor Club's history together into one. So, just for fun, and do, like, a stream or something and record that, so.
Yeah. I'd be down with that.
Yeah. So,
yeah.
We'll figure out when to do Season 3, Second Chance. We'll get to talk about yours and Nate's games. We'll get to talk about Caleb's domination. We'll get to talk about strategic domination. We'll be able to talk about people like Mitch and how Mitch
Oh boy, I can't wait.
And unfortunately, the end of character arcs for Leigh and Tyler, as they are the first 2 boots of that season. And so, yeah, thanks for doing this, man. So get ready for Season 3. I'll post this tomorrow or Thursday, so have a good one.
Peace.